Hi guys, it's Mrs. Jackson. I'm going to go over the next skill that we need to work on, and that is naming ionic compounds. So on the document that was provided to you in Schoology, you have this information, which is a step-by-step guide on naming ionic compounds. Okay, have that up on your screen, and I recommend taking notes. If you can print that document, print it and take notes on that document. Otherwise, you can write this on your own paper. It will work just as well. But we're going to follow these instructions on naming ionic compounds. And I'm always going to know that it is an ionic compound because the first element that's in the sentence, in the formula, is going to be a metal. So when I look at this compound, NaBr, I see that sodium is the first element. It's a metal, so I know this is ionic. Basically, what we're going to do today is we are going to undo the crisscross method that you practiced earlier. So when I see a compound like NaBr and I need to write its name, I'm going to follow these steps at the top. First thing I'm going to do is I need to split this into the two ions that I have. So I'm going to take off the first element, that's going to be your metal, and I have Na. Okay, that leaves me with Na and Br. The next thing I want to do, if I'm going to write the name, is I need to determine if this is going to require a Roman numeral. Now, Roman numerals are only necessary if you have more than one charge available in the box. So when you look at your periodic table, you can see that iron, for example, has several different charges in the box. So all of these on the back of your periodic table have multiple charges, okay? And that's going to require that we designate which one of the iron ions, cobalt ions, copper ions we are using. If you have something on your periodic table that only has one charge in the box, you don't need a Roman numeral. If you look at the element and it's got more than one in the box, you need a Roman numeral. So when we look at sodium, for example, I want to check to see if my metal needs a Roman numeral. When I look at the periodic table, I see there's only one sodium in the box, so no Roman numeral is needed. If no Roman numeral is needed, so I'm up here on 2A, we just name our compound without the Roman numerals. So sodium is my first element, so I call this sodium. And then I need to name my second ion, okay? When I look at my periodic table and I look at my Br, Br is a -1 charge, its name is bromide. So when I write the formula, I have sodium bromide. And that's all there is to naming that compound. That one's very straightforward because no Roman numeral was necessary. So let's take a look at another example. So we've got CuCl2. So I'm going to do the same thing we did before. I'm going to divide it after my cation, which is my metal, and I'm going to divide it. And then I've got Cu and I've got Cl. I'm not really going to worry about the 2 for right now. I just want to look at the names of my ions. So now that I've split it, I'm going to go to step 2 to see if Roman numerals are needed. So again, I go back to my periodic table. When I look at copper right here, there are 3 different choices in the box. So because I have 3 different choices, I need to use a Roman numeral to indicate what charge my ion had. So this is how we figure that out. So I'm going to need Roman numerals, so I'm going to have to come down here to step B. I know I need Roman numeral because there's more than one charge possible. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to undo the crisscross that you did earlier this week. So I bring up my 2, all right, I have that 2 down here. I bring up the 2, and I bring up the understood 1. So now it looks like I've got copper with a 2 and that I have chloride with a -1. So what I want to do is I want to double check that this charge value is correctly written. So what I do, okay, I switch my numbers up. That's this letter A. Then I check to see if my negative ion is correct, because the negative ions never have more than one charge. All of your negative ions only have one option, so they never change. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to check my sheet for chloride to see if it's really a -1. When I find chloride on my sheet right here, chloride is really -1. When I come back and look, if the chloride, oops, goodness. If the chloride is really -1, then the copper is really +2. So I've double checked my ion sheet that the negative ion is right. It is. Okay, so now I'm going to name it using Roman numerals. So I'm going to call this copper. And because the charge is a 2, I'm going to use the Roman numeral 2 to show the charge. And then I look up my negative ion, and its name is chloride. And I'm finished naming that compound. All right. Let's do a third example. So again, same skill, same process. I split my compound after the positive ion, that metal in the front, and I've got Cr and I've got C2O4. So now I need to check to see if I need a Roman numeral. When I go back to my periodic table, I look for my Cr, and Cr has 4 options. So because there's 4 different charges in the box, I know that I need a Roman numeral in my answer. So what I'm going to do is I come back here to my formula, and I'm going to uncrisscross. I need to switch those numbers up, so I'm going to bring this 3 up. So I'm going to write Cr with a 3, and I'm going to bring the 2 up to the top of this other ion. Its name is oxalate. So now I've brought my charges up. Step number or letter B says to check my sheet to see if the charge on the negative ion is correct. So I go back to my periodic table. I locate the C2O4. C2O4 is right here. It's called oxalate, and its charge is really a -2. So when I go back and I see that this is really a -2, that means the chromium is really a +3. I didn't do any kind of reducing. So I simply write the name for this one as chromium. I use the Roman numeral for 3, which is 3 I's. Put that in parentheses, chromium 3, and then C2O4, when we looked on our periodic table, C2O4, its name was oxalate. So then I just write that in. So chromium 3, oxalate. And I'm finished writing the names for those 3 compounds. Okay. Let's do a couple more just to practice. Go through all 5 examples on your paper. The next one you have is ZnOH2. So I'm going to follow the same process, right? I split it after the first element, and I've got Zn, which is zinc, and I've got OH, which is hydroxide. All right. So I check to see if a Roman numeral is necessary. I look back at the periodic table. I find my zinc. And wow, zinc only has 1 in the box, so I don't need to worry about a Roman numeral. So now I just name what I've got. So the first element that we have listed is Zn. So I've got zinc. And I have to go back and figure out what my OH is called. And I look at my chart of ions up here for my polyatomic ions, and I find that OH is listed right here, and its name is hydroxide. So I finish up by writing the name zinc hydroxide. And that's all there is to it. Okay, one last practice. Well, two more practices. Split it and separate it out. I've got Au, which is gold. Au, come back here with my gold watch. And then I've got CO3 as my second ion right here. So I write that here. I have to check to see if it needs Roman numerals for step number 2. I go back to my periodic table and I look to see my gold. Gold is right here. And there are 2 different options, a 1 charge and a 3 charge. So I have to have a Roman numeral. So I come back over to my formula and I need to go through my process and I need to switch my numbers up. So I'm going to bring the 2 up to the carbonate, which is CO3, and I'm going to bring the 3 up to the gold. So I've got gold, looks like it's a 3 charge, and I've got carbonate that looks like it's a 2 charge. So my next step is to check the ion page to see if this negative charge is right. I come back to the ion page. There's my CO3 carbonate. It's really a -2. So I can write my formula as gold, Roman numeral 3, carbonate. And that finishes those 5 examples. I'm going to do one last example to show you what you do if your negative ion is not written correctly. So let's take a look at that. We're going to do a sample problem with this compound, PbO. So I want to name this compound, so I'm going to go through my process. I'm going to split it after the cation, so I split it here. And now I'm going to be working with lead and oxygen. So if I go back and I look at my rules, I need to see if it needs a Roman numeral. So I go back to my periodic table. I look for lead. Lo and behold, there's 2 choices. I've got a lead 2 and a lead 4. So I know I have to have a Roman numeral. So I'm going to uncross my charges. So I'm going to bring up a 1 and a 1. So it looks like I have PB1 and an O, 1 minus. So my next step told me that I have to check the ion page to see if the negative is correct. So what I think I have is O with a minus. When I check my ion page, I find that O, oxide, is a 2 minus. So this is a formula that has been reduced. When I come back, when I look at this O, I know this is wrong. I know that it's really a -2. So to correct that, I have to take this and multiply it by 2. But if I multiply the oxygen by 2, I do multiply the lead by 2. This was a formula that when it was written the first time had to be reduced. Now that I've got my correct formula, I know that this is lead with a 2 charge. So I call this compound lead, Roman numeral 2, oxide. And those are a bit more tricky, right? You don't have to do them all the time, but they are just a little bit more tricky. Okay, so take this video, watch it again. I've included a second video in your Schoology lesson for today if you need to see some additional examples. If you have questions, please don't hesitate to email me and let me know what those are. Bye.